La bocina, Asamblea Popular Nacional. La bocina, Asamblea Popular Nacional.
Recuerde que si lo llegase a detener ICE, o mejor conocida como la migra, usted tiene derecho a permanecer callado hasta que tenga la presencia de un abogado. Tiene derecho a hacer una llamada telefónica. Y también recuerde que no debe de traer consigo documentos falsos. Debe de tener preparado un plan para su familia en caso de que los adultos de la familia sean arrestados. Los hijos pequeños puedan ser asistidos por algún otro adulto al cual usted le tendría que dejar un documento firmado por algún notario público donde usted, como padre, decide que sus hijos queden bajo la custodia o la tutoría del adulto al que usted eligió. Eso no le quita a usted los derechos como padre, pero sí evita que en circunstancias de detenciones de migración sus hijos vayan a cuidados infantiles que no estén relacionados con su familia. Recuerde sobre todo que no debe de tener miedo, que juntos y organizados podemos vencer.
Este ha sido un mensaje del Comité de Comunicaciones de la Asamblea Popular Nacional en los Estados Unidos. Usted está escuchando Radio La Bocina APN. Si desea comunicarse con nosotros, por favor escríbanos a la siguiente dirección electrónica: labocinaapn@gmail.com. Gracias. Usted está escuchando La Bocina APN. Buenos días a todos, compañeros de la Patria Grande. Este es el programa radial número 56 de la Asamblea Popular Nacional que estaremos transmitiendo hoy día 30 de abril del año 2017. Este programa es en español y nos interesa todo lo relacionado con la lucha social. Este programa tiene como origen la creación de la Asamblea Nacional Popular en Estados Unidos. Durante los próximos 60 minutos escucharemos noticias, reflexiones, música, entrevistas y mucho más en el contexto de nuestra Asamblea Nacional para el mundo. El contenido de hoy, una entrevista a Jenny Torres sobre la marcha en memoria de José Campos Torres que se llevará a cabo el 6 de mayo en la ciudad de Houston. También tenemos una poesía de la poetisa Denise Isayotzin Lopez, un poema llamado Decolonización. También el caso de José Campos Torres por el profesor Lorenzo Cano. La música de hoy es del grupo Los Alacranes, de nuevo, ya que la semana pasada también lo tuvimos, del trabajo discográfico El Mojado. Canciones como Linda Chicana y Bandoleros serán escuchadas en este programa. Gracias por estar con nosotros y a continuación la entrevista con la señora Jenny Torres en inglés. Lamentablemente no tuvimos tiempo de traducirla. Hi Jenny, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for showing great interest.
We're going to talk today about the march.
Yes.
The march will be
Saturday, May the 6th, 2017, starting at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We will be meeting at the 4800 block of Canal Street and 100 block of Burr Street, Houston, Texas, 77011. It will be a memorial walk, Solidarity Memorial Walk, and also commemorating his 40th anniversary of his passing.
the first march the last year. Let's talk about that march.
The idea came from many years ago. That day, actually. I was 10 at the time only. When I grew up, I was going to do something. There was something that I was going to do. As years went by, as time passed, the pain was still there. The pain will always be there. I just had to find the right time to do something for him. As I started to notice he was starting to just be a memory, fading away, I said no. And that's when I realized that was the time. And I gained strength, because this takes a lot of strength to pull together and to get this to pull this off. It takes a lot of strength. And when I felt that I was strong enough to go forward with this, I went for it.
How was the reaction of your family, of your friends, when you told them or you proposed them to do that?
Well, first I had to go and ask my mom, basically explain to her what was the purpose, which she totally understood. And she totally understood, and was just still, it was just too much pain was still there, which for all of us, it would always be pain.
How was her free reaction?
She really did like the idea. She really did love the fact that where I was coming from is so he can be remembered and never forgotten. And that was that's something very important to us, and it's very important to me. This is what I want to make sure that my mom, as on her way out, that she knows that I am going to make sure that her son, her firstborn, will always be remembered. And that's what I can give her.
So, when you say the right time, it have to do with your mother?
It has to do, the right time had to do with basically all of us in my immediate family. For my sisters, I only have 2 more sisters left. With me makes 3. My sister was going through, ups and downs in her life, and my oldest sister as well, and me as well. Me just losing a son 5 years ago. There was a lot going on in our lives.
What do you have to do for the march last year? How you start to do that? You call friends, you go to the city to ask for permission. How was the process to put together the one last year?
Well, first of all, I had always had that idea, but I was just looking for the strength. And Richard, my son Richard, has a friend, Willie Rodriguez, that had met Rick, and they came about a conversation about Joe. And my son Rick told him, yeah, that's my uncle. And Willie was like, what? That's your uncle? Hey, well, you know that we need to do something in his honor. We need to keep his memory alive. And then that's when Richard got in touch with me and broke that information down to me. And I'm like, what? Okay, this is that. It was just amazing how Willie was put in my path. And ever since then, we've been a good team on this.
How you promote that the last year? How you did the promotion of the media?
The promotion in the media, well, we really didn't promote it very much through media. No. It was just by word of mouth. Monica Villarreal worked on some flyers, as well as, I believe, we also had some other groups working with us that also helped promote it through Facebook. It got around real good through Facebook, and next thing you know, we had a lot of people there at the first Solidarity Walk.
Tell me something about who does that, the graphic design about the march and Jose Campos Torres.
Oh, a very, very beautiful, down-to-earth person, Monica Villarreal. I give her the credit on the graphic that she does and the time that she puts in it. She puts so much compassion towards the cause, in which, for that, I will forever be grateful.
Did you expect so many people the last year when they start the march?
No, I didn't. I wasn't too sure how it was going to play out. Since that was the first time, there was a lot of things we learned on the first time around of the march. We learned a lot of do's and a lot of don'ts, which this year we learned from last year. And Memorial Walk coming up on May the 6th is going to be...
Can you talk to me about who was there?
We also had several groups from the Brown Berets, Gamalismo, from Dallas and San Antonio. They also joined in as well. Many of the elders were present, which I was very honored to have the elders attend this, and they also realizing and knowing in their heart that this is something that is very important to keep alive. Joe's story is very important to keep alive for the history and also for our culture. It's a huge part of it.
When you say culture, mean specifically the Mexican American community?
Yes, the Mexican American community, the Chicanos, to also shed light on what we also had to suffer through in those times and even today.
How is the march? Walk? What's the distance? What's the last year?
Well, last year it was, I don't even recall how many miles it was, but it is a huge walk. I was amazed that I survived that walk, but it's just the determination that I had in my heart that I pulled it off. We will be starting from 2nd Ward, going towards, heading down Canal, making a right turn near the Guadalupe Plaza, passing that area also, and going towards the McKee Bridge.
That was the last year. The McKee. Why the McKee Bridge is so important?
The McKee Bridge is where he was found, where his body floated up. To the right side of the bridge, the banks of the bayou, the Buffalo Bayou, is where his body was found. And that is our last stop. And we make the walk towards on Canal Street, where the cantina was, where he was at. And we make it all the way to passing the McKee Bridge. And we make the 2nd stop, which would be in downtown, which is called the Hole, where he was taken and beaten and thrown in the bayou at that location. So that's the 2nd stop. And then the 3rd stop and the final stop will be where he was found, which we then walk back from downtown, heading back towards McKee Bridge. And that will be our last stop there.
That's why it's so important, that road. Now, let's talk about the next march. When gonna be?
The next march will be Saturday, May the 6th, 2017, at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we will be meeting up at the 4800 block of Canal Street and 100 block of Burr Street, Houston, Texas, 77011.
The road gonna be the same that the last year?
Yes, it will always be the same route. Now, we are not clear on the very specific route of that day of this of his murder, for the simple facts because they were in vehicles and we are walking. We were just trying to connect the locations from when he was first alive and when he was beaten, and then at the end where he was found. So we just kept those locations and just connected them and formed it into a...
I mean, are you going to publicize a map in your Facebook page?
Yes, we will put a map up there, which will be...
What's the name of the Facebook page?
The page is Joe Campos Torres Solidarity Walk for Past and Future Generations.
This is the Facebook page?
Yes.
Do you expect children for this one? I mean...
Yes, and this is what it's for. This is how it's named. It is named Joe Campos Torres Solidarity Walk for Past and Future Generations. This is for before him, and this is for after him. This is for everyone from all walks of life, from all ends of the earth, basically. This is for everyone. Everyone is invited.
Do you have any special message for teachers of a public school for children?
I wish that this would be something in the educational form to teach the teachers first so they can pass this on to their students, even in middle school, high school, because this is part of our history. This is part of Houston's history. And it's very important that the true history be told and not be forgotten and not be reworded, to be told as it was done.
What happened when all of you are in the bridge?
We have poetry, we have music, we will be having a another wreath, the second wreath throwing there. Family members will throw a wreath there. The first wreath will be thrown where he was thrown at that bridge. The second wreath will be thrown on McKee Bridge. And it's very important. The walk is very important, and each location is very significantly important of that day events. The locations play huge roles in that day event.
Do you recommend something like umbrellas or?
Yes, I most definitely recommend sunblock, umbrellas, plenty of water. We will also have a rest stop near the McKee Bridge where we will have waters there, people there. We will have chairs there for people to sit. I recommend sunglasses, caps. Be very energized. Be very motivated that day. It's for a great cause. It's for all of us. It's for my grandkids, for your grandkids, for your kids. It's for all of us.
If some people are listening to us right now, it's very important. You will see there so many activists from Houston, different organizations. If you're going to meet them and ask about the organization and ask more about Jose Campos Torres event, go there. This is the right place because this is a very spiritual and this is a real cultural heritage of the Mexican American culture in Houston. The memory of the Campos Torres. We need to remember, and to the state that the policemen have to understand and be more respectful with the civilians. We need to integrate. As Lorenzo Cano, professor from Houston University, he talked about we need to teach the state and the policemen how to work together for avoid the police abusement.
Exactly, most definitely. On my brother's case, justice was never served. It's just I'm so lost for words. I have no words on that, but my actions will show.
Jenny, if somebody wants to make contact with you...
Yes, my email is janniemom27@gmail.com, and that is JANIEMOM27@gmail.com. If you have any questions or a suggestion or an idea, please feel free to email me.
Do you have any idea to have Jose Campos Torres in a park? Like a statue, like for memory, for remembering him, like...
Actually, yes. I have a lot of ideas, a lot of plans for the future. We are working on a marker as well. There's a 50-year marker. There's a 40-year marker and there's a 50-year marker. I believe we're shooting for the 50-year marker. And so we have only done one fundraiser so far, and we plan to do other fundraisers in the future. I don't really have a specific time yet or in a year or two yet, but we will let the people know. We will let the community know.
So do you accept donations?
Yes, we do accept donations. We accept volunteer. We accept everything. Again, this is for all of us, and we accept whatever help someone is willing to offer.
For the next march, which kind of volunteer you need?
We do need some volunteers for the rest stop site, which is going to be near the McKee Bridge. We have a couple of them, but we still need a few more.
You need people who bring water, I guess?
We need volunteers for water, to bring water. Cases of water would be greatly appreciated to, just to keep everyone hydrated. We need volunteers to get the word out.
Jenny, I'm so thank you for giving me a few of your minutes and talk about specifically the march. I hope everyone contact you and see you, all of you, the May 6th at
4800 block of Canal Street and 100 block of Burr Street, Houston, Texas 77011.
Let's remember now again the email.
It's JanniemOm27@gmail.com. It's JANIEMOM27 gmail.com.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much for your interest, Ernesto.
Connection to this world, my mama and my baby girl. Just can't keep this woman down. She will always be around. She knows how to make everything right. Sweet brown goddess of life, mi linda chicana, nueva chicana.
Hello, my name is Jenny Lopez, poet here in the Houston community. My poet name is Decolonize, and a lot of my poetry is centered around social issues, around self-sustainability and police brutality as well, and also Black-Brown relations. So most of my work as an activist as well is around that. But as a poet, I do and have written about Joe Campos Torres. So I'm honored to be able to read these poems to you today. And this first one is called Stolen Life, Passing Through Joe's Neighborhood. And it is around the fact that my family is from Second Ward, just like Joe's family is and was when he was killed by police. And so sometimes as I'm passing through the area, I have recollections of him because of different things that I might see. And so this is a poem about Joe, inspired by Joe. Stolen Life, Passing Through Joe's Neighborhood. I awoke a little after the sun today. My cat, seeing me open my eyes, rushed to my face to nudge me. Feed me, he messaged with every jab. With so much force it smushed and hurt my nose. Escaping my zombie fighter dream, fighting my subconscious to stay so I could run on walls, just a few more minutes snooze. Up then, driving to meet familia for Merida's breakfast, but not before, looking up and seeing the moon illuminated perfectly in half, Mercury in retrograde, then over the Lockwood Bridge to navigation to turn my head left to meet the sun, nestled in dark clouds, temprano, magnificent, but taking its time like me. Down navigation, then a voice said, Joe didn't get to have many of these, not as many as he could have, only about 1,200 Saturdays, the rest stolen. And for me, it was only just about to be 8 a.m. Thank you. The second poem is actually about Joe. After Joe passed away or was killed, there was a big uprising of people that became really disgruntled with the situation. And a year later, on Cinco de Mayo at Moody Park, there was a celebration that actually turned into a rebellion. And this second poem is untitled, but it discusses what happened there on that day and why it's still relevant today as well. The last thing he saw was the hole. Beat black and blue, his eyes were swole. Jose Campos Torres, most called him Joe. The cops that dropped him didn't care to know. Just a spick, just a wetback. Never mind his army fatigues. Beat him, then threw him in the bayou. Are you not intrigued? Entertained by this not so isolated case? And we can talk about negligence, class, but don't forget about race. That's why 1 year later, on the 5th of Mayo, not far from where we stand, mi gente had it. With their fists up, they did demand. They wanted justice and dignity, value of life and humanity. They stomped, screamed, and clashed amidst all the brutality. See, 'cause sometimes they don't hear us if we're pleading at their feet. Sometimes they don't see us till there's heat up in the street. 'Cause most times we go about their business, never giving it a second thought, till they remind us how they feel by killing us or jailing us to rot. Joe's story remains in our hearts and our minds because it's been far from the last. He sits at the root of why, with police, we continue to clash. Moody, moody, some say they feel shame. Bigger than Travis or Mayo, Chicanos were fed up with the racist game. The movement flourished here without expectation. Ya basta with the discrimination. Moody was a seed planted to grow a conscious brown nation. Let us never forget Joe. Let him be our motivation. Thank you so much. You know, when I think about poetry, I think of some of the great poets that I relate to, or that, always had historical context. All poetry is beautiful and everything, but for me, the poetry that stands out to me is like the Gil Scott-Herons, the Amiri Barakas, the Maya Angelou's, these people that were storytellers that were able to fuse, beautiful art and words into historical context. And it's important because, so many times in activist work, you find yourself that you're talking to a lot of the same people, or people that already know these stories and are familiar with it, and that's the thing that brings them there. But through artistry and things like poetry and music and things like that, you're able to reach a crowd of people that otherwise would never know these stories, that would never hear about Joe Campos Torres, that would never learn about Oscar Grant and other people that have suffered injustice with police and things like that. So it's an opportunity for us as artists to bring these stories into a context that is more, palpable for people. They want to hear art, they want to hear they want to see art, they want to hear poetry, and then they get to hear these poems that actually speak to their lives and help them understand where they are now. So many of our young people, they feel anger or they feel resentment towards, police or their situation in life or their educational backgrounds and things like that. And they're confused about why things are how they are. But through learning history and artistry and this, it gives us an opportunity to, to build those bridges for them so that they understand why and how they came to be at this place. So, that is the reason that so many poets do poetry, and the greats have done poetry, and we continue to strive so that people understand and know who they are and where they've been.
Bandoleros, ride the wind with me on a full moon in the California night. Bandoleros, ride the wind with me on a full moon in the California night. Bandoleros, ride the wind with me on a full moon in the California night. Valiant caballeros with their pistols in their hands, riding through the hills, the valleys and the desert sands. Valiant caballeros with their pistols in their hands, riding through the hills, the valleys and the desert sands. Walking, 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 walking. Señorita, and the shadow of your smile, memories of the nights that I shared with you a while. Lovely señorita, and the shadow of your smile, memories of the nights that I shared with you a while. Souls of bandoleros, right beside me in the sky. California warriors, with the condors we can fly. Souls of bandoleros, right beside me in the sky. California warriors, with the condors we can fly. Walking, our struggle that we know we have to win. Santos, let us ride the wind again. Memories of our struggles that we know we have to win. Walking, 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 we shall ride. Walking, 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 we shall ride. We shall ride the wind again. Walking, we shall ride the wind again. Walking, walk Santos on a California we shall night. Walking, we shall ride the wind again. We shall ride the wind we shall again. Ride. On a full moon in the California night. Walking, we shall ride the wind we shall again. Ride. Walking, walking.
I'm Lorenzo Cano, the Associate Director at the Center for Mexican American Studies, and I'm here at the University of Houston. And of course, I was here in Houston during the murder of Jose Campos Torres, and was part of a coalition of community people and organizations that fought to try to get justice as a result of the murder of this young man. But let me first start off by saying that the killing of Jose Campos Torres is only one of a long line of killings by police departments against people of Mexican descent in the United States for many years, going back to the time when Texas became part of the United States. If one looks at what happened in the late 1970s with Jose Campos Torres, and one that knows this history will very quickly think about the killings of people of Mexican descent in and around 1915 in South Texas and along the U.S.-Mexico border. This is when we see the Texas Rangers in particularly fighting against Mexicans who they claimed to be bandits, but oftentimes they were just innocent people, and who basically took the law in their own hands. These so-called special rangers killed, according to some people, up between 5,000 to 15,000 Mexican Americans and Mexicanos along that area in and around the years of 1915. But this happens in our community for many, many years after that, before that and after that. The Jose Campos Torres case is particularly very interesting and a very unfortunate and sad event in our history, because it killed a young man that had so much potential. It killed somebody by law enforcement officials, those individuals that we usually think are here to protect us. And in this case, you had several law enforcement officers who beat him up, tied him up, and then threw him in the bayou where he drowned. And they tried to hide this history, and the police department itself, of course, were slow to react to these killings, and the judicial system itself, of course, failed this community. And I think that his killing, and especially the tragic manner in the manner that he was murdered, really resonated throughout the community, because in our collective memory as people of Mexican descent, our parents and our grandparents told us the stories of this type of abuse against many members of the community. So just thinking back, this was just a terrible time, but it was also a time of resistance when the people organized, myself included, to speak out against these injustices, because we knew that if we didn't, then certainly these things would continue on a more frequent basis. I was not present during the conflict when the police officers arrested a young man or a couple of young men who apparently had a disagreement in the bathroom. I was there throughout most of the day, and this was a Cinco de Mayo celebration at Moody Park. And I had attended these celebrations before in the past. This particular celebration, when I was there, I noticed that there were a lot more people, and there was just a lot of people that pretty much reflected the composition of the community. That is to say that we had young people, children with families, we had teenagers, high school students, we had college students there. There were the elderly were there as well. You had many people from different backgrounds that were there at the park. As a matter of fact, I recall there was a group of Asians that were also there at the park enjoying the festivities of the Cinco de Mayo. But the park was I'm not going to say it was packed, but the park was full during the time that I was there. And so I did leave the park in the late afternoon and went home. And the next morning when I got up, this is when I realized that this had gone on in the park. I would say that I did notice that there were police officers there in the park. I didn't think that that was particularly a negative thing, in the sense that you always have law enforcement at some of these public events. But I couldn't feel that there was this animosity to an extent towards the police department, because just because of the history of the police department in the barrios in Houston, and particularly in the near north side and Segundo Barrio and many of these communities. But the confrontations with the police department at the park did catch me off guard. But I was not surprised. I was surprised it had happened, because I had been there throughout most of the day, and I left and went home. This was not the time of the internet. Internet was not here at that time, and most of the time you woke up and you got the news the next day, and this is what I discovered. And so to me, I was not surprised by the reaction of the community that defended its interest in the park, perhaps symbolically, against the police officers. And so I knew right away that this was going to continue being, there was going to continue being all types of organizing because of Jose Campos Torres himself. The actual spark that led to the conflict between the police and the community might have been some type of confrontation by two individuals in a restroom or whatnot, but I knew that there had already been growing in the community this negative sentiment against the way the community was treated by law enforcement. Well, one of the consequences, I think, is the naming of the first, let's say, African American police chief in the Houston Police Department. The Houston Police Department trying to integrate its police force, the increase in the numbers of African American, of Mexican American police officers in the police department. I think this has improved things to a certain extent, in that you have more diversity within the Houston Police Department, and the police department itself continued to teach some of their officers Spanish so that they would be able to communicate with, let's say, non-English speakers in the neighborhoods. And so we see the establishment or growth of what we call sensitivity training to the police department, and things along those lines. But in terms of the treatment of the police department with especially young people in our community, not only young but primarily young people in our community, I think we continue to have many problems in many of the barrios and many of the neighborhoods here in Houston, Texas, and in the surrounding areas. Although we have probably quite a few police officers that treat people fairly, do not talk down to people, do not threaten to people unnecessarily, I think that you still have that mentality among a lot of police officers who mistreat people, talk to them in a very negative way, and and are quick to use, their firearms against people when it's not necessary to do so. So I think that although things, I think, have gotten a little bit better in terms of how the institution has diversified the Houston Police Department, that we still continue seeing these types of things here in Houston, and these things still have to be addressed. So I think that we really need a true civilian review board that could investigate when there are allegations of abuse against the police department, and not one that they claim to have, where they're made up by police officers themselves or appointed by the Friends of Police Officers, but one that is truly independent. And even if it could reflect just the composition of the community itself, that would be great. Because then I think we would have more accountability on the part of the police department itself. There is just now some talk about having cameras that individual policemen can wear. I think the jury is still out on that, but I think that because of the recent killings that we've seen in other states and in recent days, actually, that this is something to consider as well. I think that we need to go and move towards more of a community policing type of system, where the police can perhaps could consider living in the communities where they patrol. Perhaps having the police department riding more bicycles in the community where they live, getting to know the people in that community, I think would be a more effective way of policing to begin with. Well, institutions like these never want to admit wrongdoing. Sometimes it's because they don't want to be sued for under civil law, where they feel they would have to give up compensation to individuals. It's hard for me to say why they haven't done this, and it's been so many years now. But I think it's just a general outlook that institutions like law enforcement have. They just simply cannot admit that they were wrong, because to admit that they were wrong, I think, will pick at their legitimacy as an institution in our cities today. And now with the policemen, who are now much better equipped, especially with almost military gear and weapons and technology, and as we see the wage gap grow in our cities, especially among those who are at the lower end of the economic scale versus those who have more money, you're going to see more conflict between the various classes of people, and also among different ethnic and racial minority groups, still, as we have seen for many, many decades in this country. So there is more conflict now, especially when we see some of the individuals trying to organize labor unions. Many of these attempts are within the Latino and African American community. So the police are there to protect the interest of those who have the power in society, for the most part, in my opinion. I think still our police department, like many police departments, just different parts of the world, their main goal, I think, is just to maintain the social order. So that dissent, for example, among, let's say, union members or students who are walking out of the high schools or the public schools, as we observed just a couple of 2 or 3 years ago, where the police intervened when they should not have intervened, is a good case in point of what I'm trying to say. After some of the student walkouts here because of the immigration issue, some police departments used some restraint, but it was clear cut by even in the mainstream media here how they arrested and harassed a lot of young kids who were walking out. Well, this was not legal. They violated their constitutional rights, and some courts shortly thereafter indicated these kids had a constitutional right to leave the school if they were going to a legitimate protest that was under the Constitution. And so these are the kind of examples that I'm talking about. The abuse of union workers, many of them females, downtown Houston, who are stepped on by horses when they're committing civil disobedience. You know, a horse stepping on you can kill you, actually, and can certainly maim you for life. So these are the kind of things that I'm talking about by the police department maintaining the social order. And this is in addition to, as I said, just the nightly policing of law enforcement in our communities. I think another good example is the war on drugs against here in this country, and how that war on drugs is basically in minority communities. Latino communities, African American, working class, lower class communities. They are the ones that are arrested more often by police departments, although a lot of the research has indicated that most people, there's just as many people in the Anglo community and in middle class communities who are abusing drugs. So this is another example of how the police themselves, from an institutional perspective and in the manner that they have been deployed in our society, really works against the interests of the Mexican community in the United States. Our community, the Mexican community and the broader Latino community, is a relatively youthful community, a young community. And the police department has an intimate role to play on the future of these young kids. You know, young kids in our community, many of them do not own automobiles. Many of them walk, and police patrol on the streets. So it is a natural sort of, I guess, reality that you have the police department patrolling along the streets, the same streets where we see a lot of our youth walking. And this, sociologically, I think, is an important thing to understand, that police patrol, but the average day of a policeman is very boring. This is what the research shows, that police have been interviewed. You know, what we see on TV is happens every once in a while, but on the average, Houston police is driving around boring. And if you do this day after day and nothing is happening, you get bored. So that anytime they see our youth walking along the streets, oftentimes I think they decide, well, let's see what's going on, because they're just bored. And then that often leads to a confrontation. Our young kids oftentimes defend their rights vocally, and they want to know why they're being stopped. And some people criticize this, and others look at it from the point of view that, well, maybe they shouldn't, just so they'll be protected, because they don't know that what could happen to them. But in reality, they have a right to question why they're being stopped. And it's this questioning of the police department, the questioning of the police themselves, that often irks individual police officers, because they feel that they're police officers, that they should be respected totally. Maybe that should be the case, but under our Constitution, we have a right to question. And this is part of the freedom, supposedly, that we have in this country. So a lot of our youth who question these usually find themselves getting arrested because they then are searched, and of course if they resist because they feel it's unfair, then of course they're resisting arrest, and pretty soon they're in juvenile hall, right? So for the youth today, I think they need to be very clear, and they need to know the consequences of their actions. At the same time, they also need to know that they do have these rights, and they do need to know how to, what to say and what not to say when they are arrested unnecessarily so that they won't place additional charges on them. But these are the little confrontations that lead to the killing of young people in the community. It's not because they're necessarily committing a crime or that they themselves are attacking the police. Oftentimes police killings will happen in these types of incidents. Just like when many Mexican Americans will get stopped for a routine traffic stop. It's more often than times it's our cars that are searched. More often than times they'll ask us if we are here legally, if we are U.S. citizens, and this is not asked of the middle class people that live in River Oaks or in some of the upper class neighborhoods. And now, if they would ask everybody and everybody was treated the same, and if everybody was treated with respect, that's okay. But it's just much easier to target young, poor minority group members that live here in the city of Houston.
pregunto a los presentes si no se han puesto a pensar que la tierra es de los pobres y no del que tenga más. Que la tierra es de los pobres y no del que tenga más. A desalambrar, que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. A desalambrar, que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. De Pedro, María, de Juan y José. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. De Pedro, María, de Juan y José. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. I can see fire in the sky, see the smoke rise oh so high. I can see fire in the sky, see the smoke rise oh so high. Someone's knocking on my door, saying there's a rush for war. Someone's knocking on my door, saying there's a rush for war. A desalambrar, que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. A desalambrar, que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. De Pedro, María, de Juan y José. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. De Pedro, María, de Juan y José. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. To fight for oil when there's problems on our soil. So far away to fight for oil when there's problems on our soil. If we respect our place on earth, let humanity live for what it's worth. If we respect our place on earth, let humanity live for what it's worth. A desalambrar, que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. A desalambrar, que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. De Pedro, María, de Juan y José. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel. De Pedro, María, de Juan y José. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya y de aquel.
Al final del programa de hoy, queremos agradecer a la Asamblea Popular Nacional, Comité de Comunicaciones, a Jenny Torres, al profesor Lorenzo Cano y a la poetisa de Houston, Denise Lopez. Estamos en YouTube, en Todo y estamos en Google Plus, en Pinterest también. La Bocina APN, un programa educativo sin fines de lucro. Si desea contactarnos, por favor escríbanos a labocinapn@gmail.com. El programa La Bocina APN se transmite todos los domingos de 8 de la mañana a 9 de la mañana por Radio Pacífica de Houston, Texas, en la modalidad de HD3. Usted nos puede escuchar en el siguiente enlace: www.kpft.org/distance. Usted puede comunicar con nosotros si desea enviar material informativo o participar en nuestro programa. Finalmente, si desea escuchar nuestros programas, puede hacerlo en el portal de soundcloud.com. En la búsqueda, escribe Asamblea Popular Nacional. Allí están todos los archivos de los programas desde el inicio de este proyecto radial y con una referencia en texto sobre el contenido. También estamos en Twitter, en Facebook, en Instagram. Gracias y hasta la próxima semana. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya de aquel. De Pedro, María, de Juan y José. Que la tierra es nuestra, es tuya de aquel. I can see fire in the sky. See the smoke rise up so high. I can see fire in the sky. See the smoke rise up so high.